form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution.
CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal mid-Rosh and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
How did Chick-fil-A become the enemy of the people? A North Dakota court upholds the first ever use of an unmanned drone to assist in the arrest of an American citizen. John Stossel looks at Jailhouse America and 100 million poor people in America and 39 other facts about poverty that will blow your mind. My name is Howard Riell, and this is Real Truth. You're listening to the American Freedom Network, streaming live around the world at AmericanNewsNet.com and on Facebook and on YouTube and on Real TV and in the book, Real Truth, Stay Angry. And, of course, as always, broadcasting out across the Colorado Front Range on KHNC, Johnstown, Colorado, 1360 AM The Lion. Our call-in number, 877-254-7524. Item from WesternJournalism.com. Dingy Harry Reid has a problem. His hometown paper, the Las Vegas Review-Journal, is calling him out for his latest criminal caper. Reid has been trying to help his son, emaciated Rory, steal from us, and his scheme has been exposed by the LVRJ. Rory is a slimy lawyer who's trying to use Harry's influence to strong-arm the state of Nevada, its main electric power supplier, and the federal government to line their pockets with phony green money jobs. Green job money, I should say. The Reid family business is political corruption. Like any patriarch, Harry Reid is trying to use his family business to help one of his sons. In 2010, when the SEIU was stealing an election to keep Dingy Harry in office, Rory, who was running for governor of Nevada, was so hopeless, not even Democrats' voter fraud specialists could help him. So what could Harry Reid do? Rory, who's so emaciated-looking he could pass as Harry's father, needed a way to steal the real money Democrat Party corruption can give him. Harry is using the power of his office as the Senate Majority Leader to harass and maybe even destroy Nevada Energy, the main supplier of power for the state, to help a Chinese green energy client of Rory's law firm. Rory is a spokesman for the company which is trying to gain a foothold in Nevada. That green energy is a total fake, and nothing more than a way to steal from the federal treasury means nothing to either man, unquote. My friends, nothing that I could tell you about Harry Reid would surprise you. You know it all. He is as wacky as they say. Has he committed crimes? I don't know, but whoever wrote this piece seems to know. Item from John Stossel, published in the Orange County Register. Over the past few decades, America has locked up more and more people. Our prison population has tripled. Now we jail a higher percentage of people than even the most repressive countries. China locks up 121 out of every 100,000 people. Russia, 511 out of every 100,000 people. In America, 730. Never in the civilized world have so many been locked up for so little, says The Economist. Yet we keep adding more laws and longer jail terms. Lavrentiy Beria, head of Joseph Stalin's secret police in the old Soviet Union, supposedly said, "Show me the man and I'll show you the crime." Stalin executed anyone he considered a threat, and it didn't take much to be considered a threat. Beria could always find some law the targeted person had broken. That's easy to do when there are tons of vague laws on the books. Stalin legally, quote-unquote, executed nearly 1 million people that way. I'm not saying that America is like Stalin's Russia, but consider the federal laws we have. The rules that bind us now total more than 160,000 pages. The Congressional Research Service said it was unable to count the number of crimes on the books. Yet last week, the feds added or proposed another 1,000 pages. States and cities have thousands more. Have you read them all? Have our representatives read them all? You know the answer. When there's a big crime, legislators quickly demand that felons be given longer jail sentences and mandatory minimums for repeat offenses. This wins votes but kills judicial discretion and crushes unlucky people. In Iowa, a man with an old felony conviction found a bullet, put it on his dresser, and forgot about it. A police officer looking for something else saw the bullet. Felons may not possess any ammunition, and this quote-unquote crime made the man a repeat offender. He's now serving a 15-year mandatory sentence for possession of ammunition. Really? The long sentence was appealed, but the U.S. 8th Circuit Court of Appeals upheld it, saying its hands were tied by the mandatory minimum set in law. Most of us won't be victimized by mandatory minimums or the countless ambiguities in today's laws, but if you are the kind of person America needs most, an inventor who creates something or someone who builds a business, there is a bigger chance that you'll fall victim to this incomprehensible maze. The laws burdening business and finance are bewildering. Dodd-Frank merely piled on. Even enterprises with big legal and accounting departments had better watch out. Then there's the so-called war on drugs, a war on people, actually. Lots of politicians admit that they used drugs in their youth, even presidents. Barack Obama wrote in his memoir, Dreams from My Father, quote, pot had helped, maybe a little blow or cocaine when you could afford it, unquote. And yet, in office, these same politicians preside over an injustice system that jails 1 million Americans for doing what they did. Don't you see the hypocrisy? Give us a break. They have created a Byzantine maze of criminal law that is so incomprehensible that even legal specialists don't agree on what the rules specify. Then ambitious prosecutors ruin lives enforcing those laws. The prosecutors and lawmakers say this is for our own good. No, it's not. Item from U.S. News and World Report. A North Dakota court has preliminarily upheld the first ever use of an unmanned drone to assist in the arrest of an American citizen. A judge denied a request to dismiss charges Wednesday against Rodney Brossart, the man arrested last year after a 16-hour standoff with police at his Lakota, North Dakota ranch. Brossart's lawyer argued that law enforcement's warrantless use of an unmanned military-like surveillance craft and outrageous governmental conduct warranted dismissal of the case, according to court documents obtained by U.S. News. District Judge Joel Med wrote, quote, there was no improper use of an unmanned aerial vehicle, unquote, and that the drone, quote, appears to have had no bearing on these charges being contested here, unquote, according to the documents, unquote. My friends, they may have had no bearing on Rodney Brossart, but what about you? What about when you're minding your own business, faced with this Byzantine blizzard of laws, you're doing your own thing in your own backyard, and some drone takes a picture of you doing it. Next thing you know, there's a cop at your door arresting you. You're going to jail. Why? You don't know. Your lawyer doesn't know. In all likelihood, the judge won't know until he consults one of the piles of books that he's got in the law library. It is getting impossible to live in America today from a variety of directions. And this business about constant surveillance from drones, this is just the straw that breaks the camel's back. We're going to be back with more Real Truth after this commercial word. Go nowhere.
The Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. He makes the plans of the peoples of no effect. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people he has chosen as his own inheritance. Psalm 33, verses 10 through 12.
No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescent to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188. Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245.
Welcome back to Real Truth. Howard Riell presiding. Do you think you're getting the real information when pollsters put out polls? Well, you may be, and you may not be. Ain't that simple. That's why I'm going to turn to Dick Morris, political consultant extraordinaire, talking about the real, that is, the accurate poll data regarding the presidential race. Let's give a listen.
Hi. Today we'll talk about the real poll numbers. The media is circulating this myth that Romney is in serious trouble, his campaign is flat, he's too stiff, he's not connecting with people, Obama's surging. One idiot who writes for Newsweek magazine actually said that there was a possible Obama landslide coming. My goodness. Well, on Friday I looked at the real poll numbers by an organization that I can't name, but I trust it. These guys are solid professionals. Their polling firm is superb. Their methodology is excellent. They polled likely voters, not registered voters. Their weightings are appropriate. And it's exactly the data that you can depend upon. And it's 650 interviews in every state, so there's not a lot of margin of error in there. Here's the scoop. Here's the true story. Right now, Romney is leading, obviously, in every state that McCain carried in 2008. But then he's also leading in the following states that Obama carried. And in these states, Romney not only has Obama under 50, Romney actually has a lead. Indiana, where he has a big lead, New Hampshire, Wisconsin, Nevada, North Carolina, and Colorado. If he wins all of those states, the states where he's now ahead, he'll have 228 electoral votes, and he needs 269. The next easiest votes to pick up are three states which are virtually tied, where Obama is well under 50 and Romney is right on his heels. The closest is Ohio, where Romney is 1 point behind, Florida, where he's 2 points behind, and Virginia, where he's 2 points behind. If he wins those three states, he'll have 288 electoral votes, just about 20 more than he needs to win the nomination. But he's going to do better than that. I think that Romney will probably win all of the states where Obama is under 50% of the vote, because as I've always said, the undecided vote always goes against the incumbent. So in addition to those 288 electoral votes, I think you'll be able to add in Iowa, New Mexico, Michigan, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and perhaps even New Jersey, which are states where Obama is now under 50% of the vote. He has a lead over Romney, but more than half of the voters are either for Romney or undecided. And if he wins those states, he wins 351 electoral votes, which is a landslide. Obama got 363 by point of reference. So this campaign is going very, very well for Romney. The election is very much tending toward him. And in the last 30 days, during the month of July, of these 13 states that they polled, Romney gained in 9 and lost in only 4. So the trend lines are very good. So what's going on here is the media is attempting, I think, to help Obama raise money and hyping the whole idea that he's going to win, he's inevitable, victory is at hand, and so the opportunist money will flow to Obama. But the facts, the truth, the reality is the exact opposite of what the media is feeding you. Now, please, please, please circulate this video all over the place because our troops have to understand that stuff is going well. I don't want them to be down on Romney or to give up or anything of that sort. We're doing very, very well. Thanks a lot.
So Romney is doing well. I'm not real interested in that. I'm wondering, is America doing well? Will we do well with President Romney? I hope so. I'm not a betting man. If I were, frankly, I wouldn't bet on it. Item from the Sultan Kanish website. The transformation of Chick-fil-A from a fast food place that most liberals had never heard of into the enemy of the people is a reminder of the speed at which progressivism travels forward and backward in time. A few months ago, the CEO of Chick-fil-A would have done nothing worse than echo a consensus so mainstream that it was adopted as a campaign position by the leftiest Democrat to sit in the White House. A few months later, that same position is so outrageous that it leads to mass boycotts, threats of violence, and mayors of dysfunctional urban centers threatening to drive the reactionary chicken franchise out of their cities, unquote. My friends, one of the best things about America is freedom of speech. You can say anything you want, even if it pisses people off. And believe me, I've taken advantage of that freedom many, many times over the course of my 54 years. This business about trying to put Chick-fil-A out of business, denying them licenses in cities, it's no good. It's bad. It's un-American. It's anti-American. It's anti-freedom. It's anti-freedom of speech. Don't be a part of it, and don't settle for it. Item from Natural News. If you run a family farm or other small business in which you regularly make large cash deposits at the bank, you could be in violation of a little-known federal law called the Bank Secrecy Act. Making regular cash deposits of any amount, in fact, could land you in the crosshairs of government tyrants who, according to CBN News, have already seized tens of thousands of dollars from family farmers whose only quote-unquote crime was depositing their hard-earned cash in their bank accounts. When it was first passed by the U.S. Congress back in 1970, the Bank Secrecy Act was intended to combat money laundering and other criminal activity by identifying so-called suspicious depositing activity. This law requires financial institutions to keep rigorous documentation of all individual cash deposits exceeding $10,000, which is considered to be suspicious, and to submit this information to federal authorities. Many criminals, however, allegedly began to try to evade this law by spreading out their individual cash deposits to numerous bank accounts in order to keep them below $10,000, which prompted the federal government to amend the law to prohibit individuals from so-called structuring their deposits. Anyone who deposits even moderately sizable sums of cash, in other words, becomes a potential target under this unreasonably vague and all-inclusive law, unquote. My friends, it seems to be the theme for the day. Too much law, too all-encompassing law, too invasive law. Too much law. Don't vote for anyone unless he tells you he is against larger government. He's all for smaller government, fewer laws, fewer regulations, fewer encumbrances on America. Those are the politicians we need. Item from Commentary Magazine. It happened almost without anyone noticing it. But last month, the Department of Health and Human Services issued a new policy directive effectively gutting the 1996 Welfare Reform Act. With a single stroke, the Obama administration ended the work requirements that began the push to end the dependency of the poor on government assistance and to impose accountability on the system. The popular and successful law was something both President Clinton and the Republican Congress took credit for. But when Obama overturned it last month, it generated little comment except from conservative watchdog Foundation. But today, the Mitt Romney campaign has unveiled a new ad that will put the issue on the political front burner. The Democrats will probably seek to label the issue as a racist provocation, while also claiming the poor economic situation and high unemployment make it impossible to impose work requirements on the needy. But the issue here is neither race nor sympathy for the poor. If the Obama rewrite of the law is allowed to stand, the president will have gotten away with reversing a fundamental reform of the welfare state. Without the work requirements created by the 1996 legislation, we'll be dooming a new generation of Americans to the sort of thraldom to the government that most Americans believed we had finally ended during the Clinton administration. Unquote. Item from Front Page Mag written by Daniel Greenfield. I quote, Murfreesboro, a city in the heart of Tennessee, and Marseille, France's second largest city and its largest city on the Mediterranean coast, have few things in common. The two cities are separated by nearly 5,000 miles and by equally wide divisions of language and culture. And yet Murfreesboro and Marseille are connected by a common challenge. Both cities have struggled against the creeping rise of the mega-mosques. The mega-mosque in Marseille has been the subject of an extended legal fight going back a decade. The one in Murfreesboro had a brief history of being on the wrong side of the law, but in both cases, elected officials did their best to aid the mega-mosques while ignoring local residents and the law. The mega-mosque business is booming around the world. The Marseille mega-mosque has a proposed capacity of 7,000 seats, which would make it the largest mosque in France, overshadowing the Hervé Mosque, which has a mere 5,000 seats. Both of these French mega-mosques would be dwarfed by a proposed London mega-mosque with 12,000 seats and usability targets as high as 40,000. If the London mosque is ever built, it will dominate the Mosque of Rome, currently the most mega of all the mega-mosques of the Western Europe. The Ground Zero Mosque, located near the site of the most brutal Muslim atrocity inflicted on the West in centuries, had a more modest 2,000 seating capacity plan, but would be vertically taller than most of the mega-mosques with a proposed 100,000 square feet of space. This would make it larger than the Marseille mega-mosque, the Murfreesboro mega-mosque, and the London mega-mosque, but despite their differences in size, all four mega-mosque projects have followed the same pattern of lawsuits, public protests, exposures of shady mosque backers and public officials eager to look the other way. The Cologne mega-mosque in Germany has also followed the same pattern and is set to become the biggest mosque in Germany. But big is never enough. The Stockholm mega-mosque was finished in the year 2000 and has a capacity of 2,000, but a decade later there was already a proposal to replace it with an even larger mega-mosque. At its current size, the Stockholm mega-mosque had already managed to feature sermons in support of Islamic terrorism and serve as a recruitment center for Al-Qaeda. At several times the size, the situation could only get worse. In yet another common pattern of mega-mosques, the Stockholm mega-mosque was funded primarily by Sheikh Zayed, the ruler of the United Arab Emirates. The Cologne mega-mosque was primarily funded by Turkey's Islamist government. The Marseille mega-mosque is being funded by a number of foreign Muslim governments. It's not only in the West that the mega-mosques are rising. In Moscow, Muslims have taken over entire streets to call for the construction of new mosques, and the Saudis have already offered to cover the cost. In China, Saudi money has been transforming mosque designs from the Chinese pagoda to the dome and minaret favored by their new patrons. The more traditional Chinese look of the great mosque of Xi'an is making way for the Ziguan Mosque, a monstrous 3,000 capacity mega mosque, which looks as if a chunk of Saudi Arabia had been dropped in the middle of Lanshu. In Argentina, a year after the bombing of the Jewish center by Muslim terrorists, President Carlos Menem, who's been accused of complicity in the attack, allotted 7.5 acres of public land to build the King Fahd Islamic Cultural Center, the largest mosque in Latin America. It overshadows the Caracas mega mosque in Venezuela, which has a capacity of 3,500. Both mega mosques were built by the Saudi royal family. For now, the Islamic Center of America, located in sunny Dearborn, Michigan, where Christians can expect to be stoned if they get too close, is the largest mega mosque in the United States. As the mega mosque projects grow explosively across the country and the world, so does the resistance to the long shadows that they cast, unquote. My friends, where are the politicians in your city and in mine who will put an end to this insanity? Item from Caroline Glick, writing for the Jerusalem Post. Less than 100 days before the U.S. presidential elections, the Obama administration is openly denying Israel's sovereignty over Jerusalem. Can this be a vote-getter? Last week, the Emergency Committee for Israel released an ad entitled, "Oh, Jerusalem." The commercial showed administration officials squirming when asked to name the capital of Israel and highlighted the recent refusals of White House and State Department spokespeople to acknowledge that Jerusalem is Israel's capital city. The underlying message of the ad was that the administration's policy is out of step with the views of the majority of Americans. Stop connection between the politicians who will not stop the growth of mega mosques and politicians in the White House and State Department who've got their lips pressed firmly against Arab oil money butts. Jerusalem has been the capital of Israel for millennia. It's certainly been the capital of Israel since 1948, and all those scum politicians who want oil money, who want oily money from oily sheiks, they refuse to speak the truth. Out of office with them, I say. Kick their asses out, and if they want to live in Saudi Arabia, more power to them. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Phillips, founder of the Green Herb.
The people who are controlling the government of America are the same people who are trying to control your family's health care. You can sit quietly by and accept their plan, or you can take responsibility for your health. What would happen if you could no longer obtain the medications you're now taking? Would you be forced to join the ranks of corrupt agents just to purchase the medicine? If you're one of the thousands of concerned citizens who would like to know more about a natural way, God's way to health, drop by the Green Herb for a natural solution and all the information you need to make an intelligent decision. Or go to our website, www.thegreenherb.com. Come by the Green Herb, located in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, on the I-70 Frontage Road North, 1 mile west of Kipling, or call 888-765-HERB. That's 888-765-4372. And be sure to listen to the Green Herb Show with Linda and Dr. Cass every Tuesday at 1 o'clock on KHNC.
Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone into the world. By this you will know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit that does not confess that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have already heard was coming and is now already in the world. 1 John 4:1.
Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal, mid-Rosh, and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
Friends, I'm always telling you to stay angry, and if you haven't been able to sustain that yet, this video will help you. Representative Alan Grayson is questioning Federal Reserve Inspector General Elizabeth Coleman about where $9 trillion went, and she hasn't got a clue. Whether we should laugh or cry or both, but let's listen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Inspector Coleman, you're the Inspector General for the Federal Reserve, right? Okay.
That's correct.
Have you done any investigations concerning the Federal Reserve's role in deciding not to save Lehman Brothers, which led to shockwaves that went through the entire financial system?
In that particular area, I don't generally comment on specific investigations, but we do not currently have an investigation in that particular area.
All right. What about the $1 trillion plus in expansion of the Federal Reserve's balance sheet since last September? Have you conducted any investigations regarding that?
Right now we have we call it a review, and if you could determine investigation, they have different connotations. So we're actually conducting a fairly high-level review of the various lending facilities collectively, which would include, the TALF, a variety of the different programs that are in process. So we're looking at them at a fairly high level to identify risks.
Well, I understand that, but we're talking about events that started unfolding 8 months ago. Have you reached any conclusions about the Fed expanding its balance sheet by over $1 trillion since last September?
We have not yet reached any conclusions.
Do you know who received that money?
We're in the process right now of doing our review, and
Right, but you're the Inspector General. My question to you specifically is, do you know who received that $1 trillion plus that the Fed extended and put on its balance sheet since last September? Do you know the identity of the recipients?
I do not know. We have not looked at that specific area at this particular point on those reviews.
What about Bloomberg's report that there are trillions of dollars in off-balance sheets transactions that the Federal Reserve has entered into since last September? Are you familiar with those off-balance sheet transactions?
I think it may be important at this point, too, just to bring up a certain aspect related to our jurisdiction. And just to clarify, perhaps, some of my earlier comments, we are the Inspector General for the Board of Governors, and we have direct oversight over board programs and operations, and are also able to look at board-delegated functions to the reserve banks, as well as the board's oversight and supervision of the reserve banks. We do not have jurisdiction to directly go out and audit reserve bank activities specifically. Nevertheless, in our lending facilities project, for example, we are looking at the board's oversight over the program, and to the extent that extends out to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York.
My friends, what you're listening to is known as bureaucratic double talk. She may be on the hot seat for now, but this meeting can't last forever. And as soon as she gets up and leaves the room, the heat is off. No one will know it happened. No one will remember it. No one will hold her to account. Let's continue to listen.
Well, I have a copy of the Inspector General Act here in front of me, and it says, among other things, that it's your responsibility to conduct and supervise audits and investigations relating to the programs and operations of your agency.
That's correct.
So I'm asking you if your agency has, in fact, according to Bloomberg, extended $9 trillion in credit, which, by the way, works out to $30,000 for every single man, woman, and child in this country. I'd like to know, if you're not responsible for investigating that, who is?
We have responsibility for the Federal Reserve's programs and operations, audits, to conduct audits and investigations in that area. In terms of who's responsible for investigating, would you mind repeating the question one more time?
What have you done to investigate the off-balance sheet transactions conducted by the Federal Reserve, which, according to Bloomberg, now total $9 trillion in the last 8 months?
I'll have to look specifically at that Bloomberg article. I don't know if I have actually seen that particular one.
That's not the point. The question is, have you done any investigation or auditing of off-balance sheet transactions conducted by the Federal Reserve?
At this point, we're conducting our lending facility project at a fairly high level and have not gotten to a specific level of detail to really be in a position to respond.
In other words, they haven't focused on the tiny details, like $9 trillion gone. It's one of those pesky little details that sometimes gets lost under a big pile of paper. Let's continue.
To your question.
Have you conducted any investigation or auditing of the losses that the Federal Reserve has experienced on its lending since last September?
We're still in the process of conducting that review. Until we actually, go out and gather the information, I'm not in a position to really respond to the specific question.
So are you telling me that nobody at the Federal Reserve is keeping track on a regular basis of the losses that it incurs on what is now a $2 trillion portfolio?
I don't know if you're telling me that you're mentioning that there's losses. I'm just saying that we're not, until we actually look at the program and have the information, we are not in a position to say whether there are losses or to respond in any other way to that particular.
Mr. Chairman.
So what she's saying is this. Let me translate it into English for you. She's saying, Congressman Grayson, you're a schmuck and you don't matter. To the cameras in the room, she's saying you people at home matter even less than Congressman Grayson. I'm here because I have to be, because the law says I must be. I'm going to deflect questions. I'm going to ignore questions. I'm going to dance around questions. Eventually, they'll say court dismissed, and I walk out of here. I continue to get my salary, my benefits, my pension. The money that they're looking for will never be found because the machine, the Leviathan, has swallowed it. It's gone to cronies. American people don't need to know where it's gone. Few, if any, Americans will know this meeting ever took place. Those who did take it won't suspect anything because we're the Fed. We're here to help. My friends, if only the world actually worked that way. The Federal Reserve has been called a criminal activity, and I can't really take issue with that. Why this chick, who's the Inspector General, doesn't know where $9 trillion went is not because she's stupid. I'm sure she's not stupid. She's part of the fraternity. She's part of the machine. She's good. She's protected. She's got nothing to worry about. They've got lawyers up the wazoo who can make sure that no rubber ever hits the road for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, by which time everybody who ever took part in this meeting, everyone who ever watched it, will be elsewhere and will start fresh, and it'll be as if it never happened. Do you see how insidious this is? Do you see why these bastards get away with it all the time? They are very practiced at it. They're good at it. It's what they do. And it's killing America. Item from the Economic Collapse blog. Every single day, more Americans fall into poverty. This should deeply alarm you no matter what political party you belong to, no matter what your personal economic philosophy is. Right now, approximately 100 million Americans are either poor or near poor. For a lot of people, poverty can be a nebulous concept, so let's define it. The poverty level as defined by the federal government in 2010 was $11,139 for an individual and $22,314 for a family of four. My friends, when we come back, poverty in America and 39 facts that will blow your mind. This is Real Truth.
The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal, mid-Rosh, and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath. If catastrophe struck, would your family be prepared? Are you confident you wouldn't react in a panic? Is there one place to get all of your emergency supplies? Ferris Survival encourages you to have confidence through preparation, not panic through crisis. Ferris Survival, located at 3366 South Broadway, is a professional, reputable, full-service business providing quality, realistic preparedness supplies at an affordable price. Go online, stop by, or call 303-781-0343. Ferris Survival.
If you're spending hard-earned money on supplements, you need to know about BioSuperfood because you're probably shortchanging yourself on nutrition and value. If you're buying products claiming to provide DNA protection from radiation, you're getting ripped off by inferior copycat products because there's no other product developed or researched like BioSuperfood. BioSuperfood is one complete superfood product that addresses radiation poisoning, allergies, arthritis, diabetes, high blood pressure, and other degenerative diseases. BioSuperfood helps digestion, decreases pain and inflammation, increases flexibility, improves heart health and brain function. It boosts your immune system and even inhibits the AIDS virus in cancerous cells. It's an antibacterial, antifungal, and anti-inflammatory. BioSuperfood is not another supplement. It's a whole food and contains over 5,000 nutrients. Call now and ask about your special discounts on your BioSuperfood purchase at 303-257-7576. That's 303-257-7576 or biosuperfood@hotmail.com.
Folks, perhaps the ultimate in government insanity is the fact that in many states around the country, if it rains and you put a pot on your porch to catch the rain and then you, water your garden with it, you are a criminal. Don't believe that's true? Listen to this report from Utah Television, Channel 5. Let's listen.
Who owns the rain? Turns out, not you. You're actually breaking the law if you try to capture rain falling under your roof and pour it on your flower bed.
A prominent Utah car dealer found that out when he tried to do something good for the environment. John Hollenhorst has the surprising story.
Rebecca Nelson captures rainwater in a barrel and she pours it on her plants.
We can fill up a barrel in one rainstorm, so it seems a waste to let it just fall onto the gravel.
Car dealer Mark Miller wanted to do pretty much the same thing on a bigger scale. He collects rainwater on the roof of his new building, stores it in a cistern, and hopes to clean cars with it in a new water-efficient car wash. But without a valid water right, state officials say he can't legally divert rainwater.
I was surprised. We thought it was our water.
State officials say it's an old legal concept to protect people who do have water rights.
Obviously, if you use the water upstream, it won't be there for the person to use it downstream.
Utah's the second driest state in the nation. Our laws probably ought to catch up to that.
So what about the little guy watering with rainwater at home? Will anybody do anything about that violation of the law?
If she really does do that, then she ought to have a water right to do it.
Are you going to make an issue out of that?
No, we have bigger fish to fry.
After months of discussion, city and state officials worked out a tentative compromise with the bigger fish, Mark Miller Toyota.
He would basically be using a Salt Lake City water right and diverting it under our name.
Small fish are off the hook for now. The state has no plans to go after them. John Hollenhorst, Eyewitness News, Salt Lake City.
Small fish are off the hook. For now. For now. Back to the economic collapse blog. Could you take care of a family of four on less than $2,000 a month? Millions upon millions of families are experiencing a tremendous amount of pain in this economy, and no matter what solutions we think are correct, the reality is we should all have compassion on them. Sadly, things are about to get even worse. The next major economic downturn is rapidly approaching, and when it hits, the statistics posted below are going to look even more horrendous. The following are 40 facts about poverty in America that will blow your mind. Number one, in the United States today, somewhere around 100 million Americans are considered to be either poor or near poor. Stop. My friends, growing up in New York, all I ever heard was that America was the richest country in the world, and by God, it was. What the hell happened to the riches? They were squandered on government programs that were brainless. They were pissed away by a military that's never been accountable for the money it spends. In general, it has been wasted. and the engine that drove the economy not only of this country but really of the entire world has been filled with gook and muck and schmutz and dirt to the point where it's slowing down and it's sputtering and it's stopping. It is a crime, literally, very, very literally, a crime against humanity. Because when the economic driver for the entire world is intentionally brought down, intentionally clogged, when someone intentionally jams a monkey wrench into the gears, then everybody suffers. Some people more than others. There are people who don't have food because the big shots were playing games with our economy. There are people who have no home because millionaires wanted to be billionaires. Let's continue. Number 2. It's being projected that when the final numbers come out later this year, the U.S. poverty rate will be the highest that it's been in almost 50 years. 3. Approximately 57% of all children in the U.S. are living in homes that are either considered to be low income or impoverished. Number 4. Today, 1 out of every 4 workers in the U.S. brings home wages that are at or below the poverty level. 1 out of every 4. 5. According to the Wall Street Journal, 49.1% of all Americans live in a home where at least one person receives financial benefits from the government. 49.1%. Back in 1983, the number was under 30%. Number 6. It's projected that about half of all American adults will spend at least some time living below the poverty line before they turn 65. 7. Today, there are approximately 20.2 million Americans that spend more than half their incomes on housing. That represents a 46% increase from 2001. Number 8, during 2010, 2.6 million more Americans fell into poverty. That was the largest increase that we've seen in the U.S. government since the U.S. government began keeping statistics back in 1959. Number 9, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, the percentage of very poor rose in 300 out of the 360 largest metropolitan areas during 2010. Number 10, since Barack Obama became president, the number of Americans living in poverty has risen by 6 million, and the number of Americans on food stamps has risen by 14 million. 11, right now, 1 out of every 7 Americans is on food stamps, and 1 out of every 4 American children is on food stamps. Number 12, it's projected that half of all American children will be on food stamps at least once before they turn 18 years of age. Number 13, the poverty rate for children living in the U.S. is 22%. Although when the government's new numbers are released in the fall, the number is expected to go even higher. Number 14, one university study estimates that child poverty costs the U.S. economy $500 billion each year. 15, households that are led by a single mother have a 31.6% poverty rate. Number 16, in 2010, 42% of all single mothers in the U.S. were on food stamps. 17, according to the National Center, stop for a second. I can't let that one go by. 42% of all single mothers in the U.S. are on food stamps. 2 things occur to me. Number 1, teenagers getting pregnant. Parents, where the hell are you? Why are you deaf, dumb, and blind? Why are you not warning your children about sex? Number 2, all the women out there, the women's libbers who said, we don't need men. Well, 42% of you sure as hell do. We'll be back.
And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, The feasts of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, these are my feasts. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work on it. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 1 through 3. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. CINN stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine, point, and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescent to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188.
My friends, you're going to go to the Economic Collapse blog and you're going to read the end of that list. It is troubling. You're also going to go to the website governmentslaves.info. That's G-O-V-T, slaves.info. Because I've only got 3.5 minutes left, I'm going to read this piece. It's called 100 Reasons to End the Fed. I'm only going to get partway through it. You're going to go to governmentslaves.info and read the entire list. Number one, the Federal Reserve System constantly decreases the value of our dollar by printing money out of thin air. That's inflation. Two, the value of a $1 Federal Reserve note in 1913 dollars is 97% less than it was then. Number three, the Fed even recognizes its inflationary activity. The Federal Reserve Bank of Boston says, quote, when you or I write a check, there must be sufficient funds in our account to cover the check. But when the Federal Reserve writes a check, there is no bank deposit on which the check is drawn. When the Federal Reserve writes a check, it is creating money. Number four, American economist Irving Fisher said, thus, our national circulating medium is now at the mercy of loan transactions of banks which lend not money, but promises to supply money they do not possess. 5, if you or I did what the Fed does when it prints money, we would be found guilty of counterfeiting and locked up for a very long time. 6, the reason you or I would be arrested for counterfeiting is it's theft. Every bill you create in bad faith, which doesn't actually represent the creation of real goods and services, real value that has improved life by directing resources to the most productive uses, is a lie and an appropriation of value from the rest of the world, which gives the counterfeiter goods and services in exchange for nothing, because he or she did not actually create anything of value in return. 7, this is true of what the Federal Reserve does. Neither paper currency nor deposits have value as commodities intrinsically. A dollar bill is just a piece of paper. Deposits are merely book entries. That came from Modern Money Mechanics Workbook, Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, 1975. Number 8, the Fed creates absolutely nothing. It does not produce a single grain of wheat to feed people, a single drop of oil to power the engines of an industrial economy, nor a single ingot of metal from the ground to build the products and buildings that improve our lives. That's from Wesley Messamore, number 9. This situation in which you or I would be arrested for doing something the Federal Reserve does every day is the hallmark of institutionalized theft and a legal system turned on its head. As French economist Frédéric Bastiat said in the 19th century, quote, but how is this legal plunder to be identified? Quite simply, see if the law benefits one citizen at the expense of another by doing what the citizen himself cannot do without committing a crime. Bingo. 10. The inflation that results from the Federal Reserve's massive counterfeiting operation steals from hardworking Americans by diminishing the value of the money they earn. 11. This destroys the purchasing power of the American people by causing the price of everything, like groceries and gasoline, to rise. 12. In this way, inflation works as a hidden tax, one of the steepest and worst taxes that Americans have to pay. 13. Inflation has now been institutionalized at a fairly constant 5% per year. This has been determined to be the optimum level for generating the most revenue without causing public alarm. Guys, you have caused public alarm. 14. If government overtly raised the average American worker's taxes to 90% tomorrow, there would be a revolution in this country. No American worker would tolerate the affront to his life and property. 15. By this means, government may secretly and unobserved confiscate the wealth of the people, and not one man in a million will detect the theft. That comes from economist John Maynard Keynes. My friends, in short, we're having our pockets picked by our government, by the Federal Reserve. It's time to fix the one and kill the other. I'll be back with more Real Truth tomorrow. Hasta luego.